other examples of Parliament, of P-Funk heading in this direction. Um, I think this album here, Funkadelic and the Placebo Syndrome, is another great example. Still doing this signifying work, even with all of these terms here. So this is 1977, and in it, it really kind of builds out the whole cosmology or mythology, as I put it here, of music, of the mothership and salvation, and also those themes of commercialism that George Clinton was criticizing earlier. It's all present within this album. And so in it, we have an antagonist character, so Sir Noise devoid of funk. And Sir Noise devoid of funk, if I understand it correctly, he's almost kind of like a DJ character. But he says, I'll never dance. You can never make me dance. And throughout the album, he's the one who's trying to stop dancing from happening. But he gets shot with the bop gun. What is the bop gun? Well, it's not necessarily, an actual gun to destroy somebody, but rather it is music weaponized to make people dance. And as George Clinton would often say, free your mind and your ass will follow. In other words, right, if you have that right frame of mind to accept all sorts of things, you can't help but dance. And so this is what the bop gun did. It put people in the proper frame of mind to, not only want to achieve something better for themselves or to understand these, the issues of 1970s of the 1970s African American experience, but also just to get people to dance. Because once you've done so, then how can you be evil and mean to each other? Some other thoughts here. I think it's really interesting that one of the common things within the whole kind of Parliament Funkadelic thing is Bootsy Collins, the bass player. He got his start playing music for James Brown. Without going on too much of a tangent, basically James Brown decided in one swift move he was going to fire his entire band from the 1960s and hire a whole bunch of teenagers to back him instead. And Bootsy Collins was one of these teenagers. Crazy move for an artist like James Brown, who was a well-established musical figure. Well, from his time with James Brown, Bootsy Collins picked up on this idea of on the one. Now, what does that mean? That means rhythmically, anybody can do whatever they want until that one, the big downbeat comes around, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom, right? And everything just slams down hard on that one, especially the bass, which is now, like I said, this much more prominent instrument in this case here. But everything, drums, horns, vocals, guitars, keyboards, everything, boom, on the one. And that's what gives funk, it's on one hand, it's that kind of looseness to be wherever you want to until you all come together. And then you get to go and be free within that rhythmic space until boom, on the one. So it's that interesting balance between individuality and the collective. But then we can also think about it as this socio-political statement, that this is about us on the one, everybody together on the one. We can all be different people, but when it comes down to it, we are, boom, unified. We see ourselves as one people. And so this notion is both musical and political. This other quote I have here for you too, this idea of postmodern tribalism. I'm going to give you, I'm going to post up a documentary about Parliament Funkadelic and George Clinton. And I'll have you navigate to a specific time where they're talking about these political ideas here. And one scholar in particular, this writer, he argues that really what George Clinton was doing with these wild stage shows with all sorts of people on stage. Everybody's kind of doing whatever. Nobody's the lead singer, but rather everybody's sharing roles. Well, he calls it this postmodern tribalism, where we're able to gather all the individuality that's around, but then also to combine that individuality into some sense of collectivity, right? That we don't have to all look the same and be the same to be a part of the same sort of thing. And that as a whole, we can see this, I think, this idea of it being ritual, that we're trying to celebrate this experience through something that is organized and structured, and maybe hearkening back to older ways of being, but brought up into the present moment, or really imagined in the future, right? Again, very different than what we often think of when we think about science fiction. If you see notions about tribes in a science fiction work, it's always done as this kind of like backwards idea. Very rarely do we think about a tribe as being the future structure of people. But that's, in a sense, what George Clinton is doing in a lot of Parliament Funkadelic music. So listen to it. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it makes you dance a little bit, right? There's so much for me to really dig into here, but I won't, just for the sake of being short and concise here with you all. But I hope that you enjoy it, because it's fun music. It's meant to be fun music. And then when you listen to the message, you understand how that message isn't just in the lyrics, but it's in the sounds, it's in the structure of the band, it's in the songs themselves. You see again how remarkably cohesive this whole artistic statement is. So I'm going to wrap it up with that idea for this week, because I know you're working really hard on your final drafts of your written statement, or of your midterm assignments. Next week, we're going to make a slight shift and talk about notions of cyber feminism. We've already touched on this a little bit, but I'll go a little bit further with it. And then we'll talk about Janelle Monáe and Dirty Computer. And, just to kind of give you a preview of that, in a lot of ways, Dirty Computer takes all of these ideas and packs it into one album. You have Afrofuturism, you have cyber feminism, you have the whole cyborg identity that we had talked about. All of these things, bam, all put together. So to understand it, you need to understand this. We need to kind of take a couple steps just to see how it all comes together. I hope you all are safe and healthy, and do great work on your final drafts of your midterm paper.
Are you done?
I'm done.